think we're good.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, thank you, Scott. Welcome to the Town of Williston Development Review Board for Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. My name is Pete Kelly. I'm the chair of the DRB. This is a hybrid meeting taking place in the town hall and on Zoom. All members of the board and public can communicate in real time. Planning staff will provide Zoom instructions for public participation before we begin. All votes taken in this meeting will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. If Zoom crashes, the meeting will be continued to October 24th, 2023. First order of business is a roll call of attendance of the DRB members. Nate Andrews.
Here.
Paul Christensen.
Present.
Lisa Braden Harder.
Present.
Scott Riley is present. Dave Turner.
Here.
John Hemmelgard.
Present.
And the chair is present. All are in attendance, a total of 7. So we do have a quorum. Next, I'll turn it over to you, Andrew, to give Zoom instructions, please.
There are no attendees on Zoom, so
Great.
be all set.
Okay, tonight's agenda, we'll start out with a public forum. This is an opportunity for those present here in the room to make comments and address the DRB on matters that are not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board? Okay, hearing none, we'll go into the public hearing session. We've got three items on tonight's agenda. The first is Appeal 24-01. The second is DP 21-18. And the third is DP 24-03. So first up is Appeal 24-01. Is the appellant present?
Yeah.
If you would please come up to the table, please, and state your names and address for the record, please.
Craig Sampson Jr., 120 Rosewood Drive, Williston.
Adam Miller from Pease Mountain Law.
From East Mountain
Law.
Law. Okay. Okay. And where is Pease Mountain Law?
In Heinsberg, 73 Charlotte Road.
Okay, thank you. And Melinda, you go first.
Okay. This is an appeal of the zoning administrator's issuance of an administrative permit to relocate a portion of Rosewood Drive to accommodate a 25-foot buffer from the Sampson Well in accordance with an order by Vermont Superior Court Environmental Division in its decision on the Brownell Rd discretionary permit dated April 15th, 2022. The property is located in the agricultural rural residential zoning district. Per WDB 5.4 and as provided by 24 VSA 4465, any decision of the administrator may be appealed to the DRB. The DRB must hold a public hearing. Following the hearing, the DRB may uphold, modify, or overturn the decision of the administrator. In every case, the DRB shall adopt written findings and conclusions supporting its action. The DRB's decision on an appeal can be appealed to the Vermont Environmental Court. So the existing property that's the subject of this appeal is located near the intersection of Route 116 and South Brownell Road in the agricultural residential rural zoning district. And it's accessed from Rosewood Drive. The primary dwelling has existed since 2017. The staff report outlines the history of this appeal. The DP 1903 went through a process of approval, and on October 15th, 2020, the project was issued a discretionary permit to create a separate parcel for the existing dwelling, 2 additional lots for single-family residential use, and an open space lot. Abutting landowner Craig Sampson then submitted an appeal to the Vermont Superior Court Environmental Division on the grounds of safety concerns about the use of Rosewood Drive to access the property and concerns about the distance of the driveway to the appellant's water supply well. On April 15, 2022, Vermont Superior Court Environmental Division issued a decision establishing conditions for DP 1903 that stated that Rosewood Drive would be relocated to be at least 25 feet from the Sampson well in accordance with Vermont wastewater and potable water supply rules. And Lot 4 will be permanently conserved as open space, already a condition of the DRB approval. On September 13th, 2022, the zoning administrator signed final plans for DP 1903. On July 24th of 2023, the zoning administrator issued an administrative permit, AP 240016, for the relocation of Rosewood Drive to satisfy the court's condition. And on August 14th, 2023, Craig Sampson filed an appeal of the administrative permit. So the conditions of AP 240016 stated that the permit was approved to adjust the driveway location per submitted plans. It was a minor amendment to the approved final plans from DP 1903 to relocate the driveway as shown. Craig Sampson's appeal narrative states, I, Craig Sampson Jr., am appealing AP 240016 and am expressing concerns that the existing roadway development plans are not conducive for Rosewood Drive, in that puddling and washout will occur, as well as boundary line concerns. The appellees, Joe LaMarche and Randy Brownell, have not submitted a statement. There have been no public comment letters submitted. A legal opinion was requested and received. It's attached to the staff report. So two issues are raised in the appeal. The first concerns the driveway construction, and the second concerns boundary line encroachment. And these issues will be considered separately. So first of all, this discussion is limited to only the portion of Rosewood Drive within Williston. The lower half of Rosewood Drive is located in Shelburne. The Vermont Environmental Court's ruling finds that a municipality has only the authority to regulate land use within its borders, and therefore the Williston DRB cannot regulate any of the land located outside Williston. So namely, this discussion is not going to consider access at all, because access is in the town of Shelburne. The town of Shelburne has jurisdiction over access. So basically this discussion is really limited to the standards for driveways as written in the bylaw in 1326 concerning grade, width, length, construction, pullouts, and natural hazards and addressing. So in its review and issuance of a discretionary permit for DP 1903, the DRB examined the plans and specifications for the construction of Rosewood Drive, which are attached to this staff report, and found those plans met the standards of WDB 1326. The DRB granted approval of DP 1903 with conditions on September 22nd, 2020, and the applicant submitted final plans. Neither the DRB's decision nor the signing of final plans was appealed. So in making a decision about whether to approve this permit, AP 24 whatever it is, 0016, the zoning administrator needs to consider compliance, reviewing the proposed development for compliance with all applicable requirements of this bylaw and consistency reviewing the proposed development for compliance with all applicable conditions of approval for DP 1903. The zoning administrator's evaluation and decision to issue a permit relied on the DP 1903 final plans and conditions of approval, which the DRB found to comply with all applicable requirements of the bylaw and with the environmental court's order. Notably, the environmental court's decision is final and expressly set forth conditions and restrictions with which the parties must comply. So the question the DRB should consider is whether or not the zoning administrator appropriately issued AP 240016. And staff is recommending that the ZA not only had authority to issue the permit, but was legally obligated to do so to comply with the court's order. The DRB may wish to modify the zoning administrator's decision by adding a condition that explicitly states that all work must be completed in compliance with the conditions of DP 1903. Staff recommends against overturning the zoning administrator's decision, as doing so would be in defiance of the Vermont Superior Court's order. So basically just discuss and decide whether the issuing this permit was done in conformance with the procedures of WDB 52, and whether or not you want to add a condition to that.
Melinda, can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry to interrupt your narrative, but why would you suggest that stating the DRB may wish to modify the zoning administrator's decision by adding a condition when it is up to the applicant to follow the all of the requirements?
Exactly. So
that to me
Is redundant.
is totally redundant.
Yeah, it is redundant, and
Okay,
It's
all right.
sometimes-
I'm making
yeah.
sure I'm not missing something.
no, you're not.
Okay.
There's a proverbial belt and suspenders.
Yeah. Okay. All
Right. So moving on to the second concern, the appellant's narrative mentions boundary line concerns without further detail. It can be inferred that the appellant is concerned about portions of the relocated Rosewood Drive that put the driveway close to abutting properties. In particular, the portion of Rosewood Drive that's required by the environmental court to be relocated 25 feet away from the Sampson water supply well. I've shown a image of the modified site plan and where that driveway will be relocated. So in the ARZD, development must be set back a minimum 15 feet from the subject property line. There's ambiguities related to whether the town setback rules apply to this particular situation, related to whether the right-of-way can be considered as a parcel itself, and whether driveways are subject to setback regulations, which was brought up in the legal opinion that you received. So there's ambiguities. However, regardless of those ambiguities, the court issued a final decision approving the DP 1903 subdivision and ordering the relocation of the driveway. So the zoning administrator is legally obligated to issue a permit to comply with the court's order, and did so properly. So again, the discussion just focusing on whether or not the administrative permit was properly issued, despite the uncertainty about property line setbacks discussed above. So staff's recommending the DRB discuss the points of these two concerns of the appellant and uphold, modify, or overturn the zoning administrator's decision. It's important to note the DRB's decision is limited to the relocation of Rosewood Drive. DP 1903 subdivision has received final approval by decision of Vermont Environmental Court. The subdivision plat has been recorded. The subdivision cannot be undone. And the court issued the conditions that require the Rosewood Drive to be relocated, and that Lot 4 will be permanently conserved as open space. And the administrative permit reflects the terms and conditions of the court order The DRB cannot alter that. That's all I have.
Okay, so what Melinda just finished on is very important because that's the guardrails for tonight's conversation. Okay, if you start to, it looks like there's some members of the public. We're going to hear some testimony. We're going to hear from Mr. Sampson and Mr. Sampson's attorney. But I don't want conversation to go outside of those boundaries of the guardrails. Everybody understand? Okay. So, I will now turn it over to you, Craig, and I would ask that you add as much detail to your position as you can, because your appeal was lacking sufficient detail. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
I'm going to start off. Okay. And then I'm going to give it to him. I'm going to hand it over to my attorney. There's no way for me to express just in pure business, because I've been saying for over 5 years, if you all lived here, I feel you would make different decisions. And it's unfortunate that it has come to this. It's unfortunate that I had to go to environmental court because I kept saying my well, site distances, so on and so forth. This has been going on. You can look. And if you looked around the room, you could see some of the looks at me right now because I'm talking and I'm sharing this. And I have no issues whatsoever with Mr. Brownell and Ms. LaMarche developing on their property. What I've said all along is that I just don't want that development to adversely affect our homes around it. We own 161 Rosewood now, as well as 120 Rosewood. Mrs. Hard passed, her boys gave us first refusal and said Mom would want it this way. So, you know, we're there to stay, and I'm not looking to keep anybody else from being there. I want to say that for the record. I just want it done right. And I don't want it to fall on deaf ears anymore. And I feel, in my opinion, that that's what's been happening for years now. And so I've asked my attorney to come and review all this and look at this so that I just don't get pushed to the side like I feel like I've been pushed to the side for years. I also have another gentleman who's going to be speaking, and it's Mr. Don Weston, regarding these blueprints which James and I just discussed. I don't remember ever seeing these final blueprints. The first time we saw these blueprints was when the wastewater permit was issued, which we didn't get copies of the wastewater. And I know that that's state. I'm not putting that on the DRB in Williston. So you could see from where I'm standing, where I'm sitting, it's frustrating every step of the way. I mean, we didn't even know they applied for the wastewater permit until somebody was putting up a control point stake 4 days before we had the 30 days left. 30 days, it was on the 26th day for us to appeal. And so we're not trying to squelch somebody from doing something on their property. I wouldn't want that done to me. But I also wouldn't adversely affect my neighbor. I'd want to make sure that I'm doing everything properly. And that's what the DRB, in my understanding, is for. So before I say something that's going to get me, why don't you leave, I'm going to hand this over. I hope I didn't say more than I should have.
All right. Thank you again. My name's Adam Miller. Yeah. Thank you. All right. My name's Adam Miller. Ms. Scott gave a very good overview. And to summarize, we're not concerned about the larger subdivision tonight. We accept that has been thoroughly reviewed, and thank you. What we are discussing is just the change in the access way that was the subject of the zoning administrator's decision earlier. We appreciate that it's relocated to be 25 feet from the well as the court ordered, although we'd offer that the court order was not a blank check to just move it 25 feet, but that whatever was designed needed to comply with the town zoning regulations. And it's we respectfully submit that that analysis was lacking in the zoning administrator's decision. And we know that because that the information to do that assessment is lacking in the application materials. There are two parts of the zoning regulations or development bylaws that are relevant to the access way. The first one is Chapter 13, which in general addresses safe and adequate access. It's getting at making sure that however you access this property is going to be safe and that it's designed in a way to last so as not to shift the cost of maintenance or redesign onto others, onto the neighbors here. In relevant part, 13.2.6.4 requires that drainage shall be provided in the form of swales or ditches. And 13.2.6.6 says that residential drives shall not be permitted where they are subject to slope failure. I understand that the materials that were submitted are essentially a revised site plan that moves the road slightly to the north 25 feet away. It shows the location of it, and a site plan that reuses the detail, the road detail from before. Mr. Weston will speak to the fact that the road on the ground does not actually look like, can't ditch on both sides, that it actually slopes uphill and needs to look like a different drawing on here and address ditching. But more so even though the design that's chosen here shows a 3-to-1 slope and a 6-foot clearing buffer, this new design road is a relocation that puts it much closer to the property line. It's hard to tell exactly how far from the property line from this, but it's also hard for us to make an assessment. I can't imagine the zoning administrator made an assessment of if you can fit a 6-foot buffer in there, if there's a 3-to-1 slope, what the effect of uphill, the need to put in drainage and how that would affect with the identified ledge in that area. Just that we can create and design a safe and sustainable, adequate driveway there. The second requirement in our bylaws is Section 29, which addresses erosion and stormwater. The goal here is that the drainage in some way is addressed so not to negatively impact the neighbor's properties or the environment in general. 29.4.2 specifically requires a runoff and erosion control plan, which shall be based on grading plans on the site and its immediate environs, showing existing and proposed contours and intervals of no more than 2 feet. I can't find that plan in here, and so it's hard to assess if the applicant, if this redesigned road meets the performance standards of later in Chapter 29. I would note that compliance with Chapter 9 is a requirement of Chapter 13. 2.6.4 and is also a requirement of 15.2.5, which the standard is the plans submitted by the applicants must clearly demonstrate compliance with these standards. We're not saying that this is impossible to design. We're saying we can't assess it if this is going to be a road that's going to last, or if we're approving something that is going to in the future fail and require the neighbors to redesign it, to rebuild it, or have costs of repair. My client accesses his two properties through this little redesigned section. And then the stormwater is of notable importance because, his well is right there. And sloping off toward that. It's now 25 feet away, but he uses that well to feed one of his houses, and it's deeded for 2 other houses in the area. So ensuring that we have a safe and adequate access is important, and having stormwater. And what we just ask is that the applicant submit detailed drawings so we can assess that, and so the zoning administrator can rely on that when they make their assessment as well. I understand that Mr. Weston, who knows the area well and is an expert in installing driveways and maintaining them, will speak about the actual site conditions. And I also understand that neighbor Mr. Beecher will speak about the aspect of the property line. Second aspect that was on here, there wasn't a concern about setbacks. I appreciate that inference, actually. I can read that in there. But we were not concerned about the setback issue. It's the actual property line itself and accuracy of the drawing. If anyone has questions for me, I'd answer them.
DRB members, questions for that testimony?
Are the plans that you've been referencing the same ones that were reviewed by the DRB?
They're the ones available on your website meeting tonight.
But the original permit that was given, because you're appealing the zoning administrator's decision
Yes.
to issue final plans that are the same project that were reviewed in a public hearing
Yes.
by this board.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
true?
Yes, and but the plans address a different design in this one specific section. And we're also reviewing the changes to the plans as proposed, which are very limited here.
And those are the plans that were reviewed by the environmental court?
The initial application, the initial plans for the 2019 application, yes. Not this proposed change, which is the subject of the appeal tonight.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So if I understand you right, this well has been next to this Rosewood Drive all these years and no problems, right?
It's 18 feet away from the edge of the road as of right now.
I'm just saying, so
Yes, 2 or less houses. As
So-
long
so-
as I've lived there, the well's been good.
that's what I'm asking
Yes.
is, so the well has not moved and the road itself has not moved.
Yes, sir.
So I need to know.
Sir, if I may, the requirements that the court was addressing here is the increase of new dwelling units, changes the state standards, that you can have an access way close to a well for 2 houses, but when you add a third house in, they require 25 feet. That's where we're getting this redesigned aspect of it for the extra traffic.
Any other questions for this testimony? Okay, are you gonna,
I understand Mr.
Bring up-
Wesson
bring up
would like to
others?
speak and Nate
Okay.
would like to speak.
great.
I have some plans here that were, I'm Don Weston. Some
Your-
plans
your-
that were dated
Don, your address for the record, please.
32 Leclerc Woods, Essex.
Thank you. Okay, continue, please.
So I have some plans here that are, they're dated May 11th, 2020. And as far as on the details for the site here, they are not accurate as far as they show the cross-section. Unless you were out there on site, you wouldn't know this, but they show the road is higher than your shoulders. And right now, on the west side, it's actually higher than what the road is, and it's all ledge. So these plans aren't accurate on as far as, it doesn't show that. And if they did put a ditch in, as far as the room, they may not, with a dispute on the property line, they may not have enough room. So this will have to be redesigned.
You said, that you used the word may. They may not have the enough room, or they will not have enough room.
If there's a line that's in dispute, if that is in closer, they do not have the room the way these plans are designed.
What line is in dispute?
The property line. On the west side of the road,
And which parties are disputing the property line?
Uh,
I got it.
I think Mr. Beecher will speak to that aspect of it.
So, and it's just mostly the way they had, the plans that they have here are not accurate to what the actual field are. And they will not, it will not work the way it's designed right now. No, I don't know what, it's just say that because they won't have the drainage, that they will have to put some sort of ditch in. The grade on the outside, on the west side is actually higher than what the road is, and they show it sloping away, which it is not like that. And they'll have to do some kind of blast. Well, they can't blast because they're going to be too close to a well. So there'll be a lot of jackhammering of ledge, or this plans just do not work the way it's designed.
Okay, I understand your position.
If I may just add one thing there. For the record, that's where the bump out is. So when the judge ordered it, the road to be 25 feet away from my well, and it bumped out, that's what we're talking about here tonight, and that's what we're talking about here now. And for it to just be circled around and hash marked and then submitted without any of us having knowledge of what those jot outs were until the wastewater permit was issued, that's what we're discussing here. That bump out, Mr. Beecher will talk about his property line, but that's the concern for the washout and the puddling. That's a 7.5% slope. It's a downhill, and y'all know what the winter's like here. And there's a huge concern there. You're gonna go like this, the road goes like that. Is there drainage? Is it? So that's what we're, if I may, just so that y'all understand, we're not talking about the entire thing. We're talking about that jot out right there. And that's why I asked Mr. Weston to come and speak to that.
The lower part of the road looks fine, but right in that one location where it jogs out, it is not drawn the way it's shown, the way the existing conditions are.
And is it your testimony that it doesn't meet the Williston Public Works standards?
No, my testimony is that these plans aren't accurate as far as the way they've got them drawn. They're not the same out in the field.
But those drawings that you're looking at don't show the relocated road.
They got it.
I mean,
Okay.
part of
I did-
the challenge here is you're flipping
Okay.
drawings that, I mean, we don't have,
They're on your website. Sorry.
that the DRB members don't have any reference to right
I
now.
don't know the dates of those drawings. I
Yeah.
don't know who prepared them. I don't know.
And you didn't do a very good job by letting us know. I mean, think about if you put yourself in our shoes, okay? We received your communication, Mr. Sampson, your communication. You're appealing 24-0016 and am expressing concerns that the existing roadway development plans are not conducive for Rosewood Drive and that puddling and washout will occur as well as boundary line concerns. Okay, and now Mr. Weston, who is a respected professional in the field, I recognize that, is flipping through plans, and we're supposed to be prepared to talk about those plans based on this appeal language?
Do you want me to answer this, or do you want to get this?
May I try?
I hope you do.
So be sensitive to what you're asking us to do.
I appreciate that. Our system is set up to have, a quick, cheap resolution at the zoning administrator level, which is largely going to be accurate. And an appeal here, and this is a homeowner pro se application, and I've been invited in because we thought it would be easier and cheaper and more efficient to resolve this at this level rather than where attorneys normally get involved. I appreciate that it's not as detailed as you might like, but he did address road safety and erosion and boundary line issues, which is what we are discussing tonight. And we're referring to, what Mr. Weston is referring to are the initial drawings here, which have essentially been bootstrapped onto this changed, this new curve, which is what we're appealing tonight. And we're saying that those drawings aren't transferable onto this, and we actually need information on what's proposed, what was approved at the zoning committee, what's before you tonight, to show the contours, show the ditching, show show that this is going to meet the requirements of the zoning regulations.
Did you bring this up in the environmental work?
No, sir, I wasn't involved in that matter.
That was a different attorney, and we weren't discussing bump out roads in environmental.
Right.
I was discussing my well being encroached because more than two houses puts it out of compliance. That's what we discussed in environmental court. The first time we saw these redrawn was when the wastewater permit was issued by the state, or was passed up by the state. And they had received it, and they were pending the property 4 days before the appeal was up. And that was a whole nother court.
So typically, we would rely on the drawings that are submitted by a licensed engineer or architect that has their stamp on it that says that they are accurately representing existing conditions and the modifications to that. It's impossible for us sitting here to know whether those are accurate representations of what's really in the field. Nor is it possible for the zoning administrator from his desk or her desk to do the same. So I'm not sure what the question is.
Excuse me, if I may. I'm sorry.
The determination that we think is required here is that it complies with Chapter 13 and Chapter 29. That it's a safe and adequate road, and that it's addressed. That the design, the application is just a circle of a prior drawing of what they had planned to do in the initial location, and is no assessment of what's now being proposed. And all we're asking is an assessment of what's being proposed, because without it, there's no way to determine if it is a safe and adequate or has stormwater and meets the zoning requirements. And we respectfully say that it was an error to approve an application without adequate drawings for which to base a determination on whether it meets the zoning requirements.
Can I ask you a follow-up, kind of a point of clarity of something you said before?
Yes, sir.
I believe you said that you do not have a problem with the setback. You have a problem with the interpretation of where the boundary line is. So are you saying you're okay with this road being rerouted within 7 feet of a property line, but you're not okay with where that property line is being stated as existing?
My client appreciates it being 25 feet away from the well, and appreciate it being designed in a way that meets its own regulations. There is a separate dispute about the location of boundary to the west with Mr. Beecher, and Mr. Beecher, I believe, is prepared to speak.
And I would argue right off the bat that is not germane to this conversation. That is a discussion between two property owners that had no bearing here. Until it is resolved, we go off of the plat as it's.
Right. And that was part of my guardrail discussion. Okay, so I really don't want to talk about the boundary line dispute.
There's a drawing that's been submitted and is on file that says this is where the property line is. We have that's the proper assessment of this, as you're asking us to do. You're saying that there's inadequate documentation to assess the drive construction. Yet we do have a drawing that gives us everything that we need to know about the boundary. So I'm not sure that we can't do both here.
The proposal moves further to the west and very close to that property line, even using the established property line in these drawings. It's very close to the ability to meet the details that they propose, that you have
Are
approved.
you saying that it does or does not?
I don't know. I don't know how far it is. It's hard to say because there's no analysis proposed. It's just a circle of a drawing, and a relocation, of the road. But what you have approved and what the court has approved does, if they use this drawing where it slopes downhill, which Mr. Weston is saying it does not slope downhill, but even if they do, they require 6-foot cutout and 3-to-1 slope and ditching, or I guess if it does actually go downhill.
So I think really the issue here is that the road profile
Understood.
is drawn as there wasn't a new road profile developed when the road was relocated.
Thank you.
That's really what you're talking about.
Yeah, and 29 requires 2-foot contours to draw this so you could see it, so you don't have to take, outside testimony like I appreciate you don't want to do. But if the application came with the site plan required in chapter 29, then we could look at that and we could say, oh, it actually goes uphill instead of downhill. But it's lacking. So there's no way that the zoning administrator could have made an accurate assessment that it complies with chapter 29. The application materials lack that. As to this plan we have here.
There is some contours on the line, on the existing plans, but the actual, unless you actually were out on the site, you would not know it. But the west side is actually higher than the road, and the plans do not show that. But you wouldn't, unless you had a site to visit, you wouldn't know that these were not accurate.
Okay, I think I got my head wrapped around what's going on here. On the relocated section of the road was not profiled, and the overall design reflecting the change. And you're saying that it no longer meets the conditions of the bylaws, and yet the zoning administrator, I'm paraphrasing your position, and that the zoning administrator should have considered that before granting a zoning permit. Is that a fair representation?
I think they're required to.
Okay, but
I don't know that it doesn't.
But
I don't know.
You didn't answer my question. Am I kind of close to what your position is?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But even the existing profile, even if they went with the existing profile with the road, it's not accurately drawn. Because the west side is higher than even if the road stayed where it is not right.
Okay.
And I would add, just to paraphrase what you said, that while you can't blast, you could use an impact hammer to bang it out and create the correct profile.
Correct. You'd have to use a hammer instead of to save the well.
And
Right.
what?
But they will have to put ditching in there, or it doesn't show that.
I'm trying to paraphrase it so I understand your position. That's all. And
I would agree, that's my understanding as well.
Okay.
What I'm frustrated about, Mr. Chair, is that the application materials that we have in front of us made that absolutely not clear. And that even the response from staff doesn't really address the issues that you're bringing up, because the appeal here doesn't say that. And it could have, in the same plain language that he just used, it could have said that. And we would have had a much better understanding. Could have had a much, I think, smoother and more effective hearing.
and that was the genesis of my frustration.
So, apologize.
How long is this section of relocated road?
I don't have one of those 3-sided rulers.
Ballpark?
Roughly 76 feet long.
76 feet. Thank you.
It's too bad that the attorney didn't bring this up in the environmental court when they talked about the bump out, about the problem with the road.
But
That's
no,
neither here nor there.
it isn't here. It's not here nor there. It's unfortunate that the engineer that submitted these revised plans didn't provide better information.
Okay. So what else? Before I let members of the public address the board.
Mr. Sampson asked me to just refer you that the materials that we're talking about tonight are on the website.
The drawings that Mr.
Yes.
Weston is,
No, these drawings are from your initial consideration of the underlying
Are
application.
these the drawings that you use, that are on the website?
Yes, with a red circle.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, we've got those. They're in our packet.
communicate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Right.
No, thank
But
you.
those drawings that you're referring to, we do not, and are not really germane, I think, to this conversation.
Yes, you do. They're right here. That is your
Well,
website.
I don't have those.
I figured
From
you
an
would
old
bring them
hearing.
up tonight.
They're not,
record
they're
of
not,
an
the
older
complete
hearing,
set is
probably,
not
but
in
not this
Yeah.
hearing.
this.
Okay, so do you have other expert testimony, or can we go to the public?
No, we appreciate
Okay,
it tonight. Please go.
okay. Okay, at this point then, I'm going to open it up to members of the audience that are here that would like to come up to the table and address the board on the road relocation, the proximity to the well, not the property line dispute. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Mr. Goulet, come on up. You get to sit at the public table. Doug, if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Doug Goulet. I live at 240 Southridge Road here in Williston. I'm the designer of record, if you will. At the time, I was employed by Lamro and Dickinson, and now I am with Trudell Consulting Engineers, but I'm the engineer representing the landowners, Joe LaMarche and Randy Brownell. Sure, they would be considered the appellees. I think that's the zoning administrator in this case. I'll be brief. As you folks have been discussing here, there was a judge's court order that required this project relocate a driveway for approximately 70 feet to avoid the Sampson well, to maintain a separation distance of 25 feet from the closest point of the driveway to the well itself. Subsequent to that court order, we altered the plans, submitted them to the zoning administrator as final plans. They were signed and approved. And that led to the issuance or the ability of the zoning administrator to issue an administrative permit for the construction to commence. I would point out through these hearings that Rosewood Drive is an existing drive. It generally meets town standards. It's through the course of the hearings, fire department, public works, all looked at the roadway configuration existing. They required that it be 14 feet where it isn't, and in most cases it is, but our plan showed where widening was to improve it to 14 feet. At that time, we weren't looking at the 25-foot isolation zone. But it was clear, DPW staff all looked at this through the DP process, that this existing road probably doesn't meet a lot of the bylaws. It doesn't have ditching and such, but it's an existing road that we wanted to utilize. We were going to upgrade it, but there was no requirement to bring it up to some of the either public works standards or the other regulations. Had this been a brand new project road, we'd be talking about a totally different subject, but that's not the case. This is an existing driveway that we wanted to add 2 additional homes to. So subsequent to the court order, we revised the plans. About half the road will stay. We're basically taking the northbound lane, digging it up and moving it to the north, thereby continuing its width, but moving it obviously to the west, closer to the Beecher property line. There's no proposal to change the road. The grade will stay exactly the same. There's no ditches out there now, so that's why we did not propose ditching. If you look at the plans, we're just about at the height of land before Rosewood Drive starts to drop off. So the drainage area is very small. So there's not a lot of runoff coming into the road and going down the road. Not to say it doesn't have some washouts during, summer heavy rains, but it's not taking a lot of off-site water as if it were at the bottom of a large hillside, for instance. So that I suspect is why there isn't drainage currently existing on either side of the road as you go up there. So we were simply not over designing it. We just wanted to shift it, keep the same grade, keep the same profile, and not propose additional ditching and such, which would just further increase the disturbance of the area. We've got, when the road is relocated, there'll be 7 feet from the new westerly side of the road to the Beecher property line, which is adequate. If there needed to be ditching for any reason, you've got 7 feet to do it in. Mr. Weston is accurate. The contours on the plans don't quite catch the subtlety of the drainage there. The grade does somewhat rise to the west, but that'll just have to be dealt with during construction. I don't know if ledge will be an issue or not. There's ledge in some places. There's others there's not. So I think that's it. We think that it went through a full review of the DP. They had an opportunity to, well, they didn't look at this part of it, but in hopes that the judge did look at it when imposing that requirement to move the road, that was a consideration. I don't know. But I think the plans as they stand are workable and will provide a good access and will not adversely impact the Sampson property. It'll benefit it by giving that relief to the well by moving the road.
DRB members, questions for Mr. Goulet?
How many houses are off this driveway?
Currently, there are 3 homes, and then when the 2 new lots will be built at the end of it, there'll be 5 homes. So 2 occupied homes now, 1 unoccupied home currently exists.
So Melinda, are there regulations about driveways and number of homes?
Yeah, you can have a maximum of 5 homes on a driveway.
Who owns the property to the west of this bump out? Is that Mr. Sampson?
Beechers.
Got it.
So are all the 5 homes after the bump out?
1 is before.
1.
That's in Sheldon. That's in Sheldon.
Okay,
Guardrails.
just to add another spin to this.
Right. So there's 4 in Williston then.
Exactly.
Any other questions for Doug?
Is the only requirement imposed by the environmental court was that the drive needed to be at least 25 feet from the Sampson well? That's the only revisions that these drawings are responding to.
I think there was one other clarifying the use of the open space. I'd have to reread
Right.
the court order. but-
Yes, that's what it says here, but but you're not responding to that with this change in your plans.
There might have been a simple note change on the plat to address that situation.
Okay,
Yep.
Doug, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other members? Go ahead.
If I may.
Yes?
This is an appeal of a zoning administrator's decision, and the zoning administrator is tasked with applying the zoning regulations literally and without discretion. The zoning regulation require ditches. Use of shall is mandatory, or drainage as necessary. They require contour lines that would show accurately what we've heard is inaccurate. And the applicant is proposing to move an existing, seems like a not currently conforming road, and to put it in a new location, and we just submit that they have the burden of showing that what they're proposing to redesign is going to meet the zoning regulations. I need to submit enough details that that can be evaluated at the zone administrator level, and that gives neighbors the ability to comment intelligently about it instead of hypothetically about it like we are today.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public that would like to address the board?
Can I say one? I
Yes.
think they do need some kind of ditching on the outside of the road, just mostly because otherwise that road could be washing out. And there's gonna be neighbors, you know, whenever you have an association, someone's gonna complain on who has to pay for, you know, that section of road or who did it. And there's a good chance that it will wash out, where if there's a ditch, it will help prevent a lot of that.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Craig, do you have something else to add?
I'm sure that my hands out, but I'm a neighbor that's gonna pay for it.
Oh, okay. Okay, last chance for members of the public to address the board. DRB members, any last questions?
All set.
Okay, any wrap up?
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, it's 7:57. We're gonna close APP 24-01. Okay, next up is DP 21-18. This is a pre-app for Snyder Group on the Essex Alliance Church property. Chris and Andy, come on up. Yep. Okay. So Scott Riley is recusing himself due to a business relationship with the applicant. Okay, Chris and Andy, state your name and address for the record, please.
Chris Snyder, Snyder Homes, 4076 Shelburne Road, Shelburne.
Andy Rowe, Snyder Homes, same address.
Okay, welcome. Staff goes next.
Okay, this is a request for pre-application review to participate in growth management in March of 2024. That is the sole purpose of this application. No changes are proposed to the project as part of what's before you tonight. With approval of the discretionary permit by this board back in October 2022, this project was approved for the overall unit count and layout, as well as the site and architectural design for phase one. So it is vested in the current version of the bylaws. We did receive one letter on the proposal, which should be in your packets. And just for information, the select board is holding a hearing next Tuesday, October 17th, which includes revisions to the growth management chapter of the bylaw. One of those changes is the projects that already have partial growth management allocation no longer need to be heard to go forward and compete again. So that's it. What follows is a recommendation to approve and allow this project to proceed to growth management next year.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Chris and Andy, anything to supplement the staff report?
Unless board members have questions.
Okay, DRB members, questions?
Are there any changes from the plans that were previously reviewed?
There's final plans that are being reviewed by staff, and those will hopefully be at your next DRB meeting to consider.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So this is just bump forward on the housing, right?
This is really all about the growth management process.
Okay.
And the fact that all of their requests was not satisfied in the last cycle. And this is really, without
Should
making
up.
light of it, this is kind of a formality.
Right.
Okay.
As long as it's the same project.
As long as it's the same project, this is a process formality. Yep,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I needed.
okay. Members of the public, any questions? Okay. Thank you. We're going to close this at 8:01. DP 21-18 is closed at 8:01. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Okay, next up is DP 24-03. Doug, if you would restate your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Douglas Goulet, 240 Southridge Road, Williston.
Okay, staff goes next.
So this is a request for a discretionary permit to modify the pavement area to the east of 687 Marshall Avenue. You can see the overall parcel outlined in red there and the sort of area of work outlined in blue. At present, it's sort of comprised of two areas, a truck loading and unloading area right next to the building, and then a parking lot to the east of that truck area, which is approximately 4 foot higher than it. The tenant has confirmed, the tenant in place has confirmed to the property owner that they don't need all that existing parking, but they do need more truck space. So essentially they're proposing to amalgamate the two areas to create a better sort of logistics area for the trucks serving that building. Staff is recommending approval and that the DRB take testimony close and approve tonight. We did not receive any public comment. The proposal does meet the standards, the dimensional standards rather, for the industrial zoning district west. This drawing here really sort of illustrates what's happening. This is to do with the watershed protection buffer. So the existing pavement is located partly within a watershed protection buffer. And under WDB2 and WDB29, which are the two chapters, one of which deals with non-conforming uses and one which deals with watershed protection buffers, do allow existing non-conformities to be repaired, replaced or enlarged. It's got to meet 3 criteria. We can't increase the degree of non-conformity. The applicant has to demonstrate compliance with the erosion control standards in our bylaw, and there can't be any increase in hazard materials stored within that area or areas or materials that could float downstream during a flood. So on this drawing here, the pink line sort of indicates the present extent of pavement on the property. So that's both the parking lot and the truck area. The green line indicates the watershed protection buffer. And then the hatched red area is what we end up with should this project be approved, which is the area for trucks and so on. So in this case, when we compare it against the regulations on non-conformities, they are compliant. The application reduces the amount of pavement in the watershed protection buffer quite significantly. It's also not closer to the wetland than existing, which you can both see from the sort of interaction between the hatched red area and the green line, which shows the watershed protection buffer. Secondly, they've provided us with an erosion control plan compliant with WDB 29 And lastly, there won't be anything stored within that area that's in the the watershed buffer that's hazardous or could float off downstream. And then lastly, they got approval from the state wetlands officer. So the DRB will probably be familiar with the parking requirements of the bylaw. Table 14.8 does say that industrial uses are very diverse, using 1 per 1,000 square feet as a starting point. We do lose 83 car parking spaces here, but it has been confirmed that they will still have sufficient for their tenants. And then lastly, just to sweep up a few matters, their landscaping is good and compliant. There's no impacts on conservation areas, so it's farmland of local importance and view shed, and the outdoor lighting is compliant. So what follows is a recommendation to approve with findings of fact, conclusions and conditions as drafted.
Great. Thank you, Simon. Doug, have you reviewed the proposed conditions of approval?
I have.
And do you have any items to bring forth for our consideration? Do you take exception to any? That's really what I'm saying.
No, they're all good.
Okay. Okay. DRB members, questions?
One clarification, this is going to just be one contiguous plane of pavement.
When it's
So-
completed,
So the
yes.
entire retaining wall is coming out, the entire fence is coming out.
Right. Simon, if you could go to sheet 8-01.
But you're shrinking the actual surface.
Yes.
Right, it's a 60-foot wide parking lot. We're shrinking it by 8 feet. We're moving it 13 feet so it abuts the existing pavement, and we're moving it down.
And
There's a sort of-
improving the stormwater, off pavement, stormwater management.
There's a simplistic cross-section on sheet 8-01 that illustrates really what's going on. I had to do that for the wetland folks to understand.
Yep.
Drainage doesn't change, we're just moving a grass swale to a new location. So that's what's happening. The hatched pavement is the new pavement being proposed.
Yep.
And we'll be reducing impervious areas.
Right. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I do take exception with the statement that says this is designated as farmland of local importance. This is junk land.
Any other questions? Okay. Doug, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to close DP 24-03 at 8:09. And the DRB is now going to go into deliberative session.
Recording stopped.
Okay, thank you, Scott, and welcome back to the Town of Williston Development Review Board for Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. The time is 8:27. The DRB is out of deliberative session. Is there a motion for APP 24-01?
Yes, as authorized by WDB 5.4.6, I, Scott Riley, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the appeal of the administrator's decision, all of the accompanying materials, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of October 10, 2023, accept the findings of fact and conclusions of law for AP 24-01, an appeal of the issuance of an administrative permit, and uphold the decision of the administrator to issue AP 24-0016.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
Second.
Paul seconds. Any discussion? Yay or nay? Nate Andrews?
Yay.
Paul Christensen?
Yay.
Lisa Braden Harder?
Yay.
Scott Riley?
Yay.
Dave Turner?
Yay.
John Hemmelgarn?
Yay.
The chair is a yay, 7 in favor, none opposed. Motion carries. we have upheld the zoning administrator's ruling. Is there a motion for DP 21-18?
2118, is that me?
That's
Oh,
you,
I'm
Dave.
looking at the wrong one, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sleeping here. I'm like, hey, I'm got the wrong one. Thank you. As authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, David Turner, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendations of the town staff, the advisory boards required to comment on the application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of October 10th, 2023, authorize DP 21-18 to proceed to residential growth management allocation in 2024.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Lisa seconds it. Any discussion? Yay or nay? Nate?
Yay.
Paul?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yay.
Scott is recused. Dave Turner?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Chair is a yay, 6 in favor, none opposed, 1 recusal. Motion carries. Is there a motion for DP 24-03?
Yes, as authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, John Hemmelgarn, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendations of the town staff and the advisory boards required to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of October 10th, 2023, accept the findings of fact and conclusions of law for DP 24-03 and approve this discretionary permit subject to the conditions of approval above. This approval authorizes the applicant to file final plans, obtain approval of these plans from staff, and then seek an administrative permit for the proposed development, which must proceed in strict conformance with the plans on which this approval is based.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Dave Turner seconds. Any discussion? Yay or nay? Nate?
Yay.
Paul?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Chair's a yay, 7 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 26th?
So moved.
Paul moves approval of the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Dave Turner seconds. Any discussion? Yay or nay approving the meeting minutes? Nate?
Yay.
Paul?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Chair is a yay, 7 in favor, none opposed. Meeting minutes are approved. Is there any other business to bring forth tonight? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all.